All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, we are going to be continuing along the path of the Dragoon by looking at the first of the Dragoon subclasses, the Dragon Slayer. Now, for those of you wondering, what is a Dragoon? I don't remember seeing Dragoon in the Player's Handbook or any of the other core books. Well, there's this really cool thing called the 5th edition D&D Cross Final Fantasy XIV Classes and Races Compendium. And what it is basically this really cool person named Soren went and actually created a homebrew where they took all of the classes in Final Fantasy XIV and translated them into D&D classes, complete with subclasses and all that cool stuff. And so, yeah, I've been going through them slowly thus far. I have done the Gunbreaker, the Dark Knight, and I just did the Dragoon base class in the last video. We're going to go into the first of the subclasses here. And if you're interested in getting it yourself, you can actually just go to the link in the description to the Final Fantasy XIV Cross D&D Reddit. And the pinned post there, the first one, will have a link to download the newest, the latest iteration of it. And yeah, it's really cool. It's 100% free. It's great. The Dragon Slayer. One thing I do want to kind of bring up, just because it was kind of jarring for me, was when you're reading the thing, you get to the end of the base class with One with the Sky, and then right below that is Dragon Song War. And then it talks about the Dragon Song War, which is the lore behind the Dragoons themselves. That's where they became really popular. But the Dragon Song War section is the subclass section. And in the original class breakdown, it just calls them Dragoon archetype. So, as much as, yeah, Dragon Song War is really important, the title there, to just kind of go along with how formatting works, should either be Dragoon archetype or change Dragoon archetype in the base thing into Dragon Song War, so that people, when they're reading this class and they get to level 3 and they go, ooh, I need to pick my subclass, they can go to the section that's labeled the same and figure out which subclass they want to go with. That's the only thing I think is weird. Like I said, it makes sense to title that section Dragon Song War, but the rest of the subclasses have nothing to do with the name Dragon Song War. They're not really linked to the idea of the Dragon Song War. It's just, it's kind of jarring, I guess, is it. So that's my only real complaint that I have about that. It's just, it's awkward to read because it changes how every other class has been written. That being said, let's get into the actual features. Quick reminder about 5th edition class design. In 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, every class is designed to play very differently right from the beginning. So in order to do that, every class has these things called defining features. These are things that are either unique to the class or may not be unique to the class, but the class uses them in a different way or gets them earlier than any other class. Just something that makes that aspect of using the ability unique to that class. And in order for something to be a defining feature, it needs to show up within the first 2 levels. So what are the defining features of the Dragoon, the base class? Well, there are 2-ish. Technically, there's 3, but 2 of them kind of go hand in hand. The first one is called the Dragoon's Trance. The Dragoon's Trance is actually relatively simple. The first thing it does, which needs to be reworded a little bit because it's very much unclear on how it achieves this, is it increases your jump height and jump distance. Dragoons in the Final Fantasy video games are known for their ability to jump and do extra damage when they jump. So the Dragoon Trance is something that gives you the ability to do that. It is a limited resource. At first level, you can only use 2 Dragoon Trances between long rests. By the time you get to 17th level, you can use 6 Dragoon Trances between little long rests. But the other thing the Dragoon's Trance does is it gives you access to the second defining feature, which is jump. Again, in Final Fantasy, jump is the class action that Dragoons get. It allows them to jump into the air. And in Final Fantasy, what would happen all the way up until Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XI technically as well, was you would jump into the air and then you were untargetable for a little bit of time, and then you would jump back into the thing, the battle, and do massive damage. In Final Fantasy III, where that effect first showed up, one of the ways you beat one of the bosses is you would just transform everyone into Dragoons, and then have them jump, and then half the time when the boss tried to attack someone, there was no one for them to attack. Obviously, in MMOs and in real-time combat, it doesn't quite work that way. So the jump in in D&D here is basically you can leap into the air up to 30 feet, and then you can come down on someone within 15 feet and do extra damage against them. The difference between doing that and just attacking them is they make a dexterity save instead of you making an attack roll against them. And on a miss for the jump ability, they still take half damage. So the Dragoon themselves can use their action to do this jump attack and basically get guaranteed damage to do that, in addition to being kind of that hypermobile aspect where you can move a little bit with the jump and everything. So very cool. So that's the second defining feature, or the 1.5th defining feature, because the only time you can use jump is when you have Dragoon's Trance on. So if you're out of uses of Dragoon's Trance, you can't actually use jump. And Dragoon's Trance lasts for a minute. So generally it will last for one full combat thing, because it's very rare for combat to last longer than to 10 rounds, which is 1 minute. The second defining feature, which I kind of rename the ability here to make it a defining feature, but it makes sense when you look at the rest of it, is what I call thrusts. But it shows up in the document that I have as Lancet. And the reason I call it thrusts is Lancet basically allows you to replace to use your action to make a melee attack that has extra stuff attached onto it. For Lancet, your melee attack actually heals you, and you have a limited number of uses, and you have to have Dragoon's Trance on. For all the other thrusts that you get later on in the class, Heavy Thrust, True Thrust, Chaos Thrust, they all don't require the Dragoon's Trance, but they are what you use your action for. They're basically a melee attack with extra stuff added on. So the Dragoon itself in combat, its choices are effectively, do I want to jump or do I want to thrust? You're almost never going to use your attack action because the Dragoon, unlike every other melee class, doesn't get multi-attack. So your thrusts are always going to be more useful than your just basic attack action, because your thrusts get to add something in addition to making a basic attack instead of just making a basic attack. So yeah, that's the Dragoon. Again, it's unique in the fact that it actually replaces the attack action with thrusts, and gives you the option of jumping instead of using your thrusts, and you eventually get a different kind of jump that does even more damage, but it's not guaranteed. It's a cool class. So how does the Dragon Slayer fit into that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Starting at 3rd level, when you choose this, you get what's called Spineshatter Dive. When you use your jump feature, so this kind of augments the jump feature, so augmenting a defining feature. That's what you want to see in a subclass. When you use your jump feature, you can empower the attack to disable the target creature. When you do so, if the creature fails its dexterity saving throw, it becomes stunned until the end of your next turn, and you double the bonus damage of the jump. When you use this feature, your Dragoon trance ends after completing your jump. So there's a lot to unpack there. First things first, it says when you use your jump feature, which means when you take the action to use the jump, not when the creature fails. So this is something that you have to declare before before you actually make before they actually make their save. Sorry, my brain is just gone right now. Before they make their save. So this is a calculated risk. If the creature fails its dexterity saving throw, it becomes stunned till the end of your next turn, and you do double the bonus damage of the jump. However, it says when you use this feature, your Dragoon trance ends after completing your jump. So whether it fails or not, it says when you use this feature, your Dragoon trance ends after completing your jump. So this is something where if they make their save, Spineshatter Dive doesn't stun them, but it does still end your Dragoon trance. So there is a little bit of give and take there where you have to kind of make the decision, okay, do I want to risk ending my Dragoon trance early to possibly get a stun? Or do I want to just keep using to jump and then not worry about it? I think that's an important kind of balancing aspect to it. Because otherwise, if there was no downside to using it, you would always use Spineshatter Dive. So it would effectively be replacing jump instead of augmenting it. And I've talked about the stun condition before. Stunned is a really powerful condition. And it was specifically designed for 5th edition to be a monk, mostly a monk exclusive feature. It is technically a pseudo-defining feature of the monk, and it was designed that way. People have actually asked the creators. I think Crawford answered it, but it might have been one of the other people, where they asked, okay, with the stun feature that's built into the monk, is there any reason why there's so few creatures that are immune to stun, and why no other class gets a stun effect? And they said flat out, yeah, it's because stunned is a monk ability. We wanted it to be something special to the monk, to give them something that no other class can do. And because of that, because it's intrinsic to the monk, making too many creatures that were immune to it basically would mean these are non-monk creatures. And there would be basically an entire class of creatures that monks couldn't use a, kind of defining feature on. So anytime I see a class adding a stun to its thing, especially before a monk gets access to it, because monks don't get it until 5th. This gives you the ability to stun at 3rd level. It needs to be something pretty limited in order to not kind of hamstring monks in general by giving one of their defining features to another class that can use it earlier and better. And so I'm not particularly against the idea of whether or not you get the stun, you are ending your Dragoon trance on it. It does make it a little bit more of a choice. And again, because this is an ability that you're getting before any other class can stun, it should be something that's very, very special. So yeah, overall, I like it. If the intent was not to only have it end your Dragoon trance if the stun took effect, it does need to be reworded a little bit differently. Simply because, right now, because of the period, and then when you use this feature, your Dragoon trance ends after completing your jump. That does create, end of thought. Here is a new thought. If you wanted this to be, it only ends if they fail their deck save, then you should probably word it as if the creature fails its dexterity saving throw, it becomes stunned until the end of your next turn, comma, you do double the bonus damage of the jump, comma, and your Dragoon trance ends after completing your jump. And then just as a clarification, if the creature succeeds, the jump happens as normal and your Dragoon trance doesn't end. If that is, and this is to Soren specifically, if that was what your intention was, that's how you should word it. And if that is your intention, I don't believe you should be using the stun condition. I think it should be incapacitated instead of stunned. The difference being, stunned has additional effects. Incapacitated means you just can't take any actions at all. You can't move, no actions, bonus actions, reactions. You're just incapacitated. Stunned also causes you to auto-fail all strength and dexterity-based saving throws, and gives all attacks against you advantage. It is a more powerful version of the incapacitated state. And again, it is supposed to be something that's unique to the monk, or at least special to the monk. And so if you do want this to be something that only ends your Dragoon trance if the target fails its dex save, you should use the incapacitated condition, because otherwise you're really kind of hamstringing, even with the fact that it requires you to use a Dragoon trance to do it. So it's a very limited thing, whereas monks can do it a lot more. You still are kind of taking the thunder away from monks, and you never want to do that when you're introducing a new class, effectively making a base class weaker or less special because of it. So yeah, that's Spineshatter Dive. I will make mention the crash landing ability of the base class that you get at 10th level does mention Spineshatter Dive. So I mentioned that I would say it here as well. Spineshatter Dive can be used to get the crash landing feature once you hit level 10. Whereas any other monk subclass, you have to use your high jump to get that. So that does add a little bit more benefit to Spineshatter Dive. Even if it does end your Dragoon trance, you can use crash landing, or anytime you use Spineshatter Dive, it will also impose crash landing. So, lots of different interesting things there. At 7th level, you get Dragon Lore. You have proficiency in history, nature, and perception checks when the checks involve dragons, and you add the Draconic language to your known languages. I'm of the personal opinion that more languages are always useful, because there's a lot of uses for being able to speak a language that your enemy or your allies don't. And there's also a lot of uses for speaking a language that your enemies don't know you speak. Your mileage will vary. I've seen quite a few campaigns where they never use the language rules. And I've seen other ones where they use language rules constantly. So, but being said, the wording here is a little bit weird, because it says you have proficiency in history, nature, and perception checks when the checks involve dragons. And generally you wouldn't do that, because you either have or you don't have proficiency. You can't gain and lose proficiency depending on the subject type. The way it should be worded to kind of fit with how things are normally worded when you want to do something like that is something to the effect of, for history, nature, and perception checks involving dragons, you may add your proficiency bonus if you are not proficient in them. So that kind of, it does the exact same thing mechanically, but it does it in a way where you aren't gaining a proficiency, when technically you aren't. All you're doing is you can add your proficiency bonus to history, nature, and perception checks when the check involves dragons. So that's how it should be worded. Other than that, it's good. It fits with the class itself. With this being a dragon slayer, it makes sense. It's kind of along the same line of the favored enemy hunter paradigm where if your favorite enemy is a dragon, you should be able to track them better. You should know more about them because you're designed to kill them. Or you've dedicated your life to killing them. And that's what the Dragon Slayer does. So, yeah, pretty good. I don't have any problems with it other than change the wording around because the way it's written right now, it's going to create issues if you are giving characters proficiencies randomly. Yeah. At 11th level, you get Drachenlance. As an action, you make a special lance attack which focuses on piercing tough defenses. Your attack roll is contested by 10 plus the target's dexterity modifier. We've actually already seen something similar to this in the, I think it was the Gunbreaker. They had what was called armor-piercing rounds, which basically let them attack someone as though their AC was 10 plus their dexterity modifier. So it basically took out any sort of armor they were wearing. This is literally the same thing. I like that ability there. Like I said, the only thing I'm less than thrilled about is just seeing the same ability across multiple classes. But that is a Final Fantasy XIV thing. In 5th edition, you generally don't tend to see that as much. And the edition itself was designed to avoid that. Every class should be as unique as possible. Every subclass should be as unique as possible. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, though. Again, evasion is something that monks, rogues, and one of the subclasses of rangers get. Yeah, the fact that, it's the same ability in a different subclass is not that big a deal. I'd like to see something different there, but this is a really useful ability. So I can't really fault them for putting it in a place where it makes perfect sense. Someone being a dragon slayer, knowing how to get through something with natural armor. Dragons have natural armor, so it makes perfect sense. I actually did a little bit of research for this. The highest AC in D&D 5th edition currently officially published is 25. And there are only 3 creatures that have, or 2 creatures that have a 25 AC. There's 1 creature that has a 24 AC. Those 2 creatures are Tiamat, the draconic god of chromatic dragons, or goddess, and I can't remember what the thing is called. Godzilla in D&D. For the life of me, I can't remember what it's called. But those are the 2 most powerful creatures, and they have a 25 AC. They have the highest AC in the entire game. However, they both have dexterity modifiers of +0. So Drachenlance would turn their AC into 10, which is really cool. It means effectively you're not going to be missing your attacks using Drachenlance, which is really nice. It does mean that Drachenlance kind of replaces True Thrust for the most part, because in general, they both do the same thing where they just make it easier for you to hit targets. True Thrust does it by letting you double your proficiency bonus on your attack roll. Drachenlance does it by lowering the AC. But they, in general, lowering the AC is almost always going to give you a better benefit than adding your proficiency bonus again, because your proficiency bonus maximum is going to be a +6. Every creature I've been able to do this on, I have not seen a drop, unless the creature already had an AC of like 13 or 14. If the AC is above 18, it's or if the AC is above 16, it's always going to be almost always going to be better. Which also means I believe Drachenlance should be renamed Drachenlance Thrust. Because again, to just kind of keep things in line with design philosophy and things, and basically to show that it is a modification to a defining feature, and because it is the exact same thing as a thrust, you make a special lance attack that does something different. It's just how heavy thrust does, it's just how true thrust does, it's just how chaos thrust does. So again, my one modification to this is call it Drachenlance Thrust, because it makes more sense. Finally, at 15th level, you have Dragon's Bane. When you are subjected to an effect that requires you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and only half damage if you fail. Additionally, your attacks against dragons deal 3d6 extra damage as you are able to pinpoint their most vulnerable areas. Against non-dragon creatures, your blows still carry extra precision, dealing additional 1d6 damage. So there's a lot to unpack with Dragon's Bane because... Sorry, I had something on my glasses. It was annoying me. Because this is technically two abilities in one. First things first, Dragon Bane gives you evasion. The taking no damage on a save or half damage on a failure for dex saves is evasion. They used almost the exact same wording. The only difference is evasion. I believe evasion normally requires you to be able to see the effect. I'm going to bring up the rogue here real quick because I know the rogue gets evasion. And I just have to remember where it is. Evasion. Yes, yeah. No, it doesn't require sight. That's, I believe that's actually a barbarian thing. So yeah, this is literally evasion, which is a useful thing. If you look at the Hunter Ranger, where are you? The Hunter. For their 15th level of ability, they get to choose one of the following features, and one of the features is evasion. So it makes sense for 15th level ability to give you evasion. However, you also get additional damage, making this literally the Superior Hunter's Defense, which is the Hunter's 15th level ability. This is literally the same thing, but better. In general, you never want to do that. If there is an ability that another class gets at the same level, but another class or subclass gets the same level, but yours is inherently better because it gives you everything they can do, plus it gives you extra stuff, that's just kind of throwing salt onto a wound. And Rangers already have it pretty bad because the base PHB Ranger was really poorly designed. What I would recommend for Dragon's Bane, they're both useful things. I would make it just like the Superior Hunter's Defense, where you get to choose. Either you can have evasion, or you can have the additional damage. Both are insanely useful. They really, really are. I know one person that I'm relatively certain is going to say, well, then people are always going to take the additional damage, because additional damage is always better than evasion. Because I had an argument with them recently online, and I'm not going to name names, but I will almost guarantee that if you are watching this, you're going to say that's a dumb thing because no one's ever going to take evasion. And it's simply not true. Evasion is unbelievably useful. It really, really is. And especially since the Dragoon is a character that needs to get into the middle of things, and their jump attack really forces them to get right next to their enemy. The ability to take half damage on a lot of things, including always take half damage on Dragon Breath attacks and take no damage when they make their saves, is unbelievably useful. And it will definitely be the difference between a success and a failure and a TPK in certain instances. And I like the idea of, okay, does my Dragon Slayer want to be a little bit more of the hyper-mobile Dragoon, where I can jump out of the way of damage? Or do I want to give up that really nice defensive aspect to be able to just do a lot more damage, especially to dragons? I think both abilities are really great. It's just two abilities for one slot, especially at 50th level. At 20th level, I might be able to justify it because it's a 20th level ability. At 15th level, no. Literally the exact same feature is available to another subclass that has been in the game since the PHB, which was the first book put out. And it gives you the same ability, and then you add extra stuff onto it. It's not really needed. Hunter Ranger is not horrible. I have a Hunter Ranger. I have played them. You have to know 5th edition really well to play a Ranger well, or at least the base PHB Ranger well, because it wasn't designed super well. But if you understand the system, it's perfectly fine, and I can out damage fighters and paladins if I when I get to do the things that I will want to. So yeah, that's my only issue with Dragon's Bane is it should be a choice. I think this makes perfect sense to give them a choice. I'm actually a big fan of subclasses allowing choice, because it means that even if you have 2 Dragon Slayers in your party, they could still differentiate slightly. And I like that. I like people being able to join a D&D group and go, damn, I really want to play a Dragoon. Or I want to play a Dragoon too. Okay, we can both play Dragoon and we'll just choose different subclasses. Well, I want to be a Dragon Slayer. Or I want to be a Dragon Slayer too. Well, then we're playing the same character mechanically, and that can become not as much fun. I've had that happen at a table I played with for only a few sessions, where it was me and this other guy were both Blade Singers, and it just wasn't as much fun because anytime I would do something, whoever acted first in combat, the other person always felt like they were just copying what that person did, because we were both knew the class really well. And we would generally take the action that was the best in that situation, which tended to be the same to the things. So, yeah, I enjoy choice in subclasses. And I think this is the perfect place to add choice. For Dragon's Bane, either you get evasion so that it's harder for dragons to kill you and therefore you can kill them better. Or you get extra damage so you can kill them faster, meaning they just don't have enough time to kill you. Both of them make sense of the class. Both of them are valid choices, especially depending on your party makeup. If you have a cleric that enjoys the idea of just healing everyone all the time, maybe you don't need to worry about taking damage as much. Or if you have multiple characters that can heal you in your party, maybe you don't need to worry about taking as much. If your particular group doesn't have someone that has healing spells, or like they are a cleric, but they are a more aggressive damage dealing cleric, and forcing them to heal you takes away from a massive amount of damage dealing the party can do, then yeah, evasion is going to be a heck of a lot more useful. Or if you simply have a wizard that uses a lot of area of effect spells that you are constantly having to save out of, evasion is going to be a lot better, because then your wizard can be much more kind of go crazy with their abilities. Yeah. So, final thoughts. Overall, I like the Dragon Slayer. I think lore-wise, it's pretty interesting. Spineshatter Dive, like I said, the stunned is okay as long as whether they make their save or not, it ends the Dragoon trance, because it does make it a very limited resource. If they only lose the Dragoon trance when when the enemy fails it, I say change stunned to incapacitated, because stunned is a monk thing, and giving the Dragon Slayer a monk ability before a monk gets access to it and not making it extremely limited is kind of a slap in the face to monks, and unbalances a different class. Dragon lore makes perfect sense. Drachenlance, like I said, it needs to be Drachenlance thrust. And that's just to make it more obvious that this is a modification of a defining feature. Those little things make it much, much easier for someone that's not me, that's not used to looking at classes and figuring out what the defining features are and how the class is designed to be played. By labeling things the same, it makes it that much easier for more regular players to be able to look at the class and understand, oh, this is supposed to work like this, and this is how the class is supposed to be played. By using the same terms in multiple places, it makes it easier for new players to be able to understand the class and be able to use it effectively right from the get-go. And then finally, Dragon's Bane, like I said, it needs to be a choice ability. Either either they can choose evasion, or they can choose the additional damage. Giving both of them just makes it too powerful. and makes Dragon Slayer itself significantly more powerful than really any other class we've looked at or subclass we've looked at thus far, because that 15th level ability is really, really good. Yeah. That is going to be all for me today. As always, if you enjoyed this, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon, and turn notifications on in the comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts on is that what your thoughts are on the whole stun thing. I make a huge issue about stun because, first of all, I understand class design, and I know that that was something made for monks. And second of all, I am a monk main in D&D 5th edition. Monk is my favorite class. It is the first class I played in 5th edition. It's generally the first class I play in most RPGs that it is offered. I like monks. And anything that's going to make them less useful or feel less special, I'm generally against. But again, from a class design standpoint, it is supposed to be a monk ability, and giving out monk abilities. I had the same issue when I started seeing abilities that were being given out that give you the ability to take Eldritch Invocations, because that is a defining feature of the Warlock, and you should have to multiclass in a Warlock to get it. Things like that. So anyway, again, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.